So, ladies and gentlemen, in recent weeks we've been talking about high-end players of the NHL of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that are not in the Hall of Fame. I can bet you dollars of donuts that if Wilf Paiement ever makes the Hall of Fame, it means all the media members that rake him through the coals for being probably one of the most aggressive players of the 1980s, despite the fact being a talented goal scorer and playmaker. Something's going on. Now, I was two minds doing a podcast on Paiement because I figured if I do it on Wilf, I got to do the secondary podcast on the player he injured, which led to one of the biggest lawsuits in Canadian sports history, Dennis Polonich. So we will do that later on. Now, Wilf Paiement, born October 16th, 1955, in Earlton, Ontario, was 6'1", 210, played right wing. Now, one of the good things you can say about him, he's the younger brother of highly respected former NHL and WHA hockey player Rosaire Paiement, who was also named Wilfred, but it's a different story altogether. Anyway, now, because of his great OHA career with the St. Catharines Saints, he got heavy recognition in what I call the second expansion draft third, after the original 6 expanded to 12, and the St. Louis and the Vancouver and Buffalo expansion. This was Kansas City and Washington. In 1974, he put up massive numbers for the St. Catharines Saints with 50 goals and 73 assists and 123 points in 70 games. Now, in that year, Greg Jolly was taken first overall by Washington, and he ended up being taken second overall by a team now that doesn't even exist anymore, the Kansas City Scouts. Now, later, Kansas City moved to Colorado to become the Colorado Rockies, and of course, Colorado moved to New Jersey to become the New Jersey Devils, who obviously is one of the most elite franchises over the last 3 decades in the NHL. Now, Paiement came to heavy prominence. He had some good seasons with Kansas City between 75 and 79. He scored 26, 21, 41, 31, and 24 goals. He became controversial for a number of reasons, and we're going to go over this, mostly from 1977 to 79, before the Lanny McDonald trade brought him to Toronto. Now, the Canadian team was allowed to come back to the World Championships in 77 after 7 years absent. Officials with Team Canada said, we're a different team than 72, we're not going to be aggressive. Sure enough, during the tournament, frustrated by the lack of success, many members of Team Canada, including Paiement, resorted to violence. Now, Paiement attacked so many players in the round robin and the medal round, you can't even count. He attacked Swedish player Lars-Erik Eriksson, who received a stick in the eye, as well as Russian stars Shadrin, Yakushev, and Babinov, who were all knocked unconscious. It was so bad, ladies and gentlemen, that the IAAF was going to kick out Team Canada forever unless they smartened up their game. And what was totally bizarre about this, because these teams didn't make the playoffs in 77, 78, and 79, Paiement went to all 3 World Championships, winning a bronze medal in 78, and he was averaging 3 to 6 goals in every tournament, and he ended up with 14 goals at the Worlds in 28 games. Now, before he was eventually traded to Toronto, he also had another major incident where on October 25th, 1978, Paiement attacked Detroit Red Wings center Dennis Polonich with his stick. Now, Polonich, who was known to be one of the most intense trash talkers in NHL history, I guess he said something on a way eater referring to Paiment's sexuality, his lineage, or maybe the back of his jersey, because Paiement had really weird numbers on the back of his, on the back of his shirt, as we say, or uniform. He struck Polonich across the face with a 2-handed slash, which resulted in severe facial lacerations, a smashed nose that required intensive reconstructive surgery, and a severe Class 2 concussion. Now, along with a match penalty, Paiement was then given the second longest at the time suspension in NHL history, which was 15 games. Polonich eventually sued, and it was rewarded with a settlement of $850,000 in 1982. But according to published reports, he's also suffered from breathing problems from then on. Now, Paiement hit more controversy when he was traded to Toronto along with Pat Hickey. For all people, the very popular Lanny McDonald and Joel Quenneville. I can see trading Joel Quenneville for a package that include Wilf Paiement, but he could have gave up somebody else like Errol Thompson or whatever. But getting rid of McDonald, that was another one of Harold Ballard's strange plays. Now, Paiement, who was very effective in Toronto, played the next 3 seasons before being traded to the Nordiques for Miroslav Friescher and a 7th-round draft pick. And this is where the other controversy comes in, ladies and gentlemen. Paiement was a thorn in the Montreal Canadiens side well into the mid-1980s. When Quebec picked him up, it was last of the season, and he really started to produce. In 8 end-of-season games for Quebec, he scored 7 goals and 13 points, and in the playoffs, he helped Quebec eliminate the Montreal Canadiens in their Adams Division playoff, and he ended up with 12 points in 14 playoff games. Now, in '84, he was also slightly part of the big brawl between the Canadiens and in Quebec in Game 6. '85, he helped the Nordiques knock off Montreal, again in the Adams Division playoffs. And in those years, Quebec was doing quite well, made as far as the semifinal round. And his best season with Quebec was 1984, with 39 goals, 37 assists for 76 points. Now, the Nordiques eventually got rid of him, and he ended up with the Rangers. But with the Rangers, ladies and gentlemen, he really came along in the playoffs after a so-so end of the season, where he got 10 points in 16 games. Now, in that playoff, he helped guide the Rangers all the way to the semifinals, where, of course, they lost to Montreal in 5 games in the playoffs, where Patrick Roy basically carried them to the victory. In '87, he found himself with the Sabres, scored 20 goals. '88, eventually with the Penguins, but he had a terrible quarter season with only 2 goals in 23 games, and eventually ended his career with the Muskegon Lumberjacks in '88 with 17 goals in 28 games. Now, he at the time of his retirement, a very unique story. He was the last active player who had played with the Kansas City Scouts. Well, 14 seasons is pretty well the age of a sniper, but consistently 25 to 40 goals every season. Best season, of course, in the Maple Leaf uniform was 1981. We had 97 points, including 40 goals in 77 games. But he didn't have much playoff success for Toronto, because Toronto didn't have much playoff success at all until, they realigned himself. Now, the reason I'm bringing up Paiement, by the way, his final career totals is 814 points, 356 goals, and 946 games. He was an angry player, and he was a very divisive player. The media in Quebec didn't like him. The media in Toronto didn't like him, because who can replace Lanny McDonald? The media in Colorado and Kansas City didn't like him. They considered him an underachiever. I mean, if you're scoring 30 to 40 goals as a high-level francophone in the NHL, people think you're an underachiever. What else do you have to do? But what he did in the World Championships was a black eye for a lot of Canadians. And now, he also had another controversy as well. When he started playing for the Maple Leafs, he started wearing the number 99 for the squad, and for all 187 games he played with Toronto. And he was the last player other than Wayne Gretzky to wear that number, last wearing on March 6, '82 against the Habs. Now, references to the time using the number 99, Paiement appeared in a commercial for the Canadian furniture store Leon's in 2008 in honor of their 99th anniversary. The commercial teased the appearance of Gretzky before revealing it was Paiement, who then said, "What, were you expecting someone else?" Now, total awards, OMJHL, first All-Star team in '74, WECA Best Forward, World Championship, tied with Sergei Makarov, how ironic, and NHL All-Star team 76, 77, and 78. But, I think Quebec stole the pocket of Toronto in the deal, because Fischer was never going to score 40 goals for Toronto. Although he had a few, like I said, he had a few good games. He wasn't too bad, but Paiement leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and always will, because I remember all these strange machinations with certain certain international players, and were scared. You wouldn't think somebody a sniper would be a goon. I mean, but stick swinging and all kind of craziness. And I never remember Paiement doing a coherent interview with anybody in the media why he was the way he was, or why he basically found himself in all these weird situations. Because the Francophone media in 2020 never talk about Wilf Paiement. They talk about Rosaire every once in a while, but anyway, it was a strange cat, and long suspension, freak out at the Worlds, almost killed somebody in the ice with a two-hander. The Battle of Quebec, he was in 3 rounds of that, and he was one of the few people not to fight heavily in Game 6 against in the quarterfinals. So pretty weird. Dale Hunter did most of the dirty work that night, including Peter Stastny and Louis Schlegel. But Paiement, I think he scored a goal late too. I could be wrong. I will have to check that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of Wilf Paiement. Give me a comment, like, or subscribe. All feedback is welcome. And if you're a big fan of Wilf Paiement, I'm going to say, well, yeah, that's good, but he's not a big fan with a lot of people, and it's a head scratcher. A guy with $1 million talent would go for 5 and 10 cent weirdness just for the sake. He knew Wayne Gretzky was wearing number 99. Do you think he was as good as Gretzky? I mean, come on. How come no member of the media asked him, why are you wearing number 99? It's like wearing Mickey Mantle's number or Babe Ruth's number. You got to back it up. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.